guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to talk about the hardest hitting A1s inside the entire game. This is a list of epic, legendary, and even an uncommon champion on the list today. Why do A1s even matter inside this game? It's simple. 3 words or 3, abilities to think about here. Counterattack, ally attack, and retribution, the mastery, right? All of those are triggering the A1. Now, it's important to remember that ally attack and counterattack only do 75% of the normal damage dealt by those champions on these A1s, but still, nonetheless, you want to find these type of champions, especially in the longer battles. We're not really necessarily talking arena blender teams here where you're going to want Sinesh's, Skullcrown's, AoE on the A1 champions, but these are more kind of clan boss against bosses, longer Doom Tower battles, who has the hardest hitting A1s inside the game. It's really good to know. So let's go ahead and talk about who they are. I want to start with the hardest, and by the way, a big shout out. We've given this spreadsheet, I guess, quite a few shout outs in the history of this channel. Let's do it again here. Ash Voyager's spreadsheet has all the champions, even the most new champions added to the game, all of their multipliers listed there. These are not just multipliers. These are multipliers also taking into account their base stats and who has the most damage potential on their A1s, okay? So the base stats, base attack for most of these champions, and the multipliers being kind of aggregated for all these champions, put them together, and this is what you have. So a lot of these champions, you guys will see, do have some qualifiers, but even with these qualifiers, they're still incredibly hard-hitting A1s. The hardest in the game is Kandra Fun. Assuming he hits twice here. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target is under any buff. So there we go. Kandra Fun, if they're under a buff, hits harder than any other champion on his A1 inside the entire game. Very, very, very good champion after his buff about 6 months ago or so. Incredibly meta inside the arena, mainly for his Butcher's Glee ability here. Just does a ton of damage, but yeah, his A1 is the hardest hitting inside the entire game. If you have him, it's odds are you're already using him, right? The second one's actually an epic champion. So an epic champion from Sacred Order. This is a guy that we've talked about a little bit here on the channel. I've never done a full guide on this champion, but it's actually Fenex. So Fenex has a nice healthy base attack at 1454, but more importantly, he has sick multipliers on his put down ability on his A1. Sometimes, this applies to a lot of champions, but there's more than meets the eye when you're simply reading over their kit. An AoE attack on a 4-turn cooldown with block buffs, nice. And then attack one enemy on his A of 3 on a 4-turn cooldown with decreased defense, decreased speed. Very nice, right? Against bosses especially. But put down is often overlooked in his kit. Put down is insane. It has a 4.1 multiplier. It places an extra hit if the target has any debuffs, and it denies revival as well. Oftentimes it can one-shot somebody and deny the revival. So very, very handy ability. Definitely handy to know just how hard-hitting this put-down ability is. And heck, all you need is 1 debuff. So decreased defense, decreased attack, whatever, weaken, whatever you have on your team will get the job done as long as he's not going first on your squad. Next up is going to be a Barbarian epic champion. Going to be Alika, number 3 in the game on the gap shot ability. Every time I mention Alika in the comments, a few of you guys let me know if I don't mention the gap shot, how hard hitting this is. Indeed it is. It's number 3 overall, including legendaries. Attack one enemy, has a 50% chance when booked of placing an extra hit. The extra hit is always critical. So really solid 50% chance of getting that extra hit. And again, even if she doesn't land that extra hit, it's still incredibly hard hitting on gap shot. And just to kind of throw it out there here, the total damage potential between Kandra Fun, Fenex, and Alika are all like SSS tier. It drops off quite a bit when we go to number 4. So these these three champions on their A1s, granted, they all do have qualifiers, not trying to like sweep that under the rug, but you know, assuming they're hitting 2 times or 3 times, whatever it was on the champion, it's going to be a lot of damage. Number 4 is going to be Mountain King. Mountain King is the first champion without any qualifiers on his A1 on Thunder Cleave. Granted, if you're attacking into a Spirit Affinity, you know, odds are it's not going to be landing that big of a hit, but attacks one enemy. Damage is based way more on HP than attack on Mountain King. But again, odds are same with Kandra Fun. If you have Mountain King, you probably know he already hits like an absolute truck. A little bit more of a niche arena champion if you want to buff Mountain King. And I know that's kind of weird because he's so good in the arena with a shield set on, especially on a defensive team, because his damage is based on HP and he has the highest HP in the game at 31k. This fabled skill increases this champion's attack by 50% each time this champion kills an enemy, stacks up to 100%. All they have to do is remove resets each round, and boom, he is viable in dungeons, you know? So if they ever did want to buff him, all they would have to do is remove these 3 words from his kit, and I think he'd actually be viable in dungeons as well. Right now, it's hard to justify having him a single target damage dealer who doesn't do a ton of damage against bosses. You would think he would, but not necessarily. With that stacked attack, though, I think that would actually do the trick. Okay, number 5 is going to be another epic champion. I was surprised at how many epics here are on the list, and it's another barbarian champion, and it's actually a champion that we haven't talked much about here on the channel. It's Harkin Greatblade. I have her on my free-to-play account, and I still, even though she hits really hard on her A1, I still am not sure it justifies building her out. I'm still not that keen on this champion overall. Let me know if you disagree with me in the comments below what I'm missing here. So she's a barbarian void epic, places an extra hit if the attack is critical. So again, a qualifier there on the A1, as with a lot of these champions. However, a pretty basic one. As long as it's critical, she's void affinity, so there's no weak affinity matchups. It should always be critical if you have 100% crit rate on her, you know, or most of the time. On the A2, she has a weaken on one enemy before attacking. Whatever, right? And then Infectious Panic, or A3, on a 4-turn cooldown, has a debuff spread, taking 2 random debuffs from the target, placing them on all enemies, extends the duration of those debuffs by 2 turns, will not extend the duration of debuffs on the initial target. Yeah, I just don't think it's that crazy of an ability. And yeah, I don't know. Just not enough for me to justify building her, even with the hard-hitting A1. But again, let me know if you disagree. Moving on to number 6 is going to be a champion who we actually talked about in a recent video, and it's Lord Shazaar. I actually called for him to get a buff. Low base HP for a legendary, not bad on the defense though. A speedy champion. He's hitting 3 times on his A1 on Damnation. Damage increases by 15% for each debuff on the target, and that is going to be no real qualifiers there, but extra damage for the debuffs. So this can deal a ton of damage on Lord Shazaar's A1. So there you have it. Lord Shazaar, very hard-hitting ability, especially for each of those debuffs, which is kind of a shame because he's really, you know, on paper with this Damnation ability and all the debuffs on Clan Boss, he should be a good Clan Boss champion. However, the rest of his kit is just meh. It's all right, you know, it's just all right. Anyway, that's Lord Shazaar. Let me know if you disagree with me on him as well. We have a newer epic champion coming in at number 7, and it is Spirit Affinity Undead Horde Annex. So Annex on his A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 35% chance at placing a strong version of decreased defense for 2 turns. So piercing shottles, that's how you say that word? Shotels?
It's worse.
Shottles. We'll call them shottles.
It's so much worse.
What even is that? I don't even know. Has a decreased defense, which is great. 35% chance on each hit is actually pretty dependable. Independent 35% chance. And, you know, you're landing it kind of more likely than not, just by a hair. And again, you are attacking 2 times. No qualifiers. Very, very nice damage there on Annex. Overall, I think he's a really solid champion. Has a decreased accuracy and poison. Has a weaken and a self-heal on his A3. Very good for Clan Boss, right? Grants an extra turn when this champion's HP drops below 10% and has an increased defense on this champion for 2 turns when he drops below 75%. So really, really solid along with the increased attack champion here. I think a little bit overlooked in terms of the newer epic champions. Not as flashy, but he brings a lot to the table. Another new champion, this time a legendary champion, and this is Estrellan. Estrellan is an incredible champion. I'm kicking myself so badly for not fusing him. Had some things come up, and I just totally didn't do it. I just didn't do it.
I feel like I'm dying inside.
I'm so jealous of you guys who do have this guy. He hits like an absolute truck. A very good champion, and he has the 8th hardest hitting A1, and this is without factoring in the Countess Licks teaming up on this attack. Attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 50% chance of placing a strong version of decreased defense, and again, very, very hard hitting. His entire kit is very, very good. A lot of people using him all over the game, really. Ignores defense, strengthen, and ally protect buffs on his divine imminence. Imminence. Dude, today's a tough video for me, guys. Tough video. Also has a shield on himself. Also revives a random ally and puts a shield on them if it kills an enemy. Removes all buffs from all targets under Veil or Perfect Veil buffs. Then places a weaken on them instead. And then attacks everybody and then has the 100% stun on this same ability. Very, very good champion indeed. And hits hard on that A1. Next is going to be the uncommon that I kind of hinted towards in the beginning of the video being on the list, and here she is. She was the one champion that I was like, okay, before the video, what does her avatar looks like again? I haven't talked at all about Dervish here on the channel, but here's Dervish. Meet Dervish, who has a higher multiplier than 99% of champions inside the entire game.
I am fantastic.
On her A1, attacks 2 times at random, has a 25% chance, make it 35% chance of placing the weak version of decreased defense for 2 turns on her A1 on Flurry. On her A2, attacks 1 enemy with heal reduction. The shame here is that, yeah, it's cool. She has a 4.6 multiplier on that A1. It has to be insanely high. That's a very high multiplier because her base attack is not that high to justify her being on this list. So that's the reason it's so high. That crazy multiplier that we're used to seeing on like a hard-hitting single target champion is here on her A1. The problem is, though, guys, is look at her base HP. 10,000 with under 1,000 defense as well. I mean, sure, you can build her, but it's not worth it unless you just want to hit people hard with the A1, which is fun to do. But man, I mean, she is the absolute glassiest of glass cannons. You touch her and she's going to be dying, and she doesn't have a strong AoE or anything like that she's bringing to the table. So I don't think she's worth building, but it is noteworthy that she does make the list. And staying in Barbarians for number 10, we're going to go from an uncommon all the way to a void legendary in Turvold. Turvold's A1 attacks 1 enemy 2 times, has a 75% chance of placing a weaken for 2 turns. Turvold hits incredibly hard. He only has 2 damage dealing abilities. This second ability is self buff and then procs an extra turn. Judgment hits incredibly hard, and then even Crackling Blade, his A1, hits extremely hard as well. One of the better sheer damage dealers inside the entire game, and he ought to be. He is one of the OG Void legendary champions inside this game. So who surprised you most on the list? I'm assuming everybody's gonna say it's Dervish. Who is a hard-hitting A1 champion that you would like to see spotlight, or any of these champions that I went over today that you would like to see me build and make a guide on? Please let me know in the comments below. I do read through your comments every day, and it gives me good video ideas for the future. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you, and as always, take care, guys.